Let's start today with a trivia question. What do Rashaad Penny, Damien Harris, and McCole Hardman all have in common? They will all make less guaranteed money in 2023 than the guy right here in my t-shirt, who most recently was employed writing blurbs about Ian Thomas and Rex Burkhead. Follow the money. This is ADP chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your site. Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Darius Tony?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're
right.
Pat?
Just to be clear, I didn't know that opening was coming. That was news to me.
I'm just
you gotta embrace it, Kerrane. Like, we need like a little bit of a villain arc for you. Like, at least one time this summer when you guys are drafting teams and you and Pete are on the clock arguing, you gotta at least one time you gotta whip it out and be like, why don't we let the guy who won $2 million last year make the pick? You know, because there's gonna be a spot where you guys are disagreeing, and you got to do it to him at least once.
There was a comment on ship chasing on Wednesday. Someone said, "I don't know what it is, but Pat seems smarter this year." I don't mind that.
I like the other idea someone threw out of you just doing the total heel turn of just advocating for flatter payout structures in all tournaments this year. I like that idea as well.
I've strongly considered that because I do actually think. But look, I don't want to have the. From now on, it should be fun. Okay, from now on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyways, it's fun catching up on the show from last week. Obviously, Hayden was there replacing me. You guys had some really interesting discussion on the free agency stuff. Was interesting getting his takes. But yeah, I think we're gonna do it again this week. Still a lot of free agency movement. Still some fallout from the guys that were signed last week. But yeah, before we get into the free agency stuff, I wanted to start today's show with talking about Bijan Robinson. I know Pat recently wrote an article on Legendary Upside. Obviously, check that out for those of you that subscribe, and subscribe if you don't already. But I also did a deep dive into looking at Bijan's potential landing spots and the impact that might have on his ADP. So I'll lay out my argument of sort of how I looked at it first, and then want to get your guys' takes. So the basic thing that I try to do, and I'm adding this to the stream here, is I wanted to consider all of his potential landing spots. And to do that, I wanted to filter out the teams that are unlikely to take him. And I came up with essentially 6 criteria that makes a team unlikely to take Bijan. I'm not arguing that like any team on this list, like it's impossible they would take Bijan. Surely like there's still a chance, but I think it was sort of important to come up with a systematic way to filter out some teams. So those criteria that would make teams unlikely to select Bijan would be not having a draft pick in round 1. I think that's kind of obvious. Everyone's projecting Bijan to go round 1. A draft pick in round 1, but only in the top 5. I just think very unlikely in today's NFL, a team takes Bijan in top 5 of round 1. Then a couple related to current money allocated to running back in their current RB rooms. So teams that either have $8 million guaranteed to a free agent that they gave out in 2023, or teams that would have more than $10 million in dead cap if they cut their current running back. So that filters out a ton of other teams, like Derrick Henry on the Titans, Alvin Kamara on the Saints, etc. And then the final 2 criteria related to draft capital in the past couple of years. So teams that drafted in running back in round 1 of the past 2 years, or teams that spent a top 50 pick on a running back last year. So then again, filters out teams like the Jaguars, Steelers, who took Etienne and Najee in the first round 2 years ago, teams like the Jets and the Seahawks, who took Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall last year. So that was my criteria.
I don't think you can filter out the Seahawks, by the way. I officially want that on the record. I don't think that you can say the Seahawks are, especially because the Seahawks could be a trade back team, given where they're picking and the fact that they just paid Geno. I think they could be a trade back team. So I want that on the record.
Davis, I think that's fair, and I think you can like nitpick some of these, like the Dallas one. I'm sure people will nitpick, right? But like, I think my point is like the ones that you're nitpicking are also the terrible landing spots for Bijan,
Well,
right? Like,
I would nitpick the
For-
Titans and the Saints because I think they might just go, we love running the ball. Let's find a better guy to do it with. And actually, like, that might look terrible
yeah.
That
for like a second, but then you're like, no, I kind of love this.
really, this whole argument that we were having via DM and Discord the other day does come down to Kerrane and I basically just saying, like, Bijan go Burr. Like, whatever team takes him is just going to want to give him the ball because we just think he's so good. Like Pat and I just think he's so good that we're like, we don't care. Like, just take him, get him on a team, and he's going to just spit out fantasy points.
Bijan is the one who knocks. That's essentially our argument.
Yes. Yes.
And I get that, and I don't really disagree with that. I guess what I disagree with is like the market perception to some of these landing spots is maybe I think worse than what you guys imagine.
Sure.
Like, sure. Okay. The Saints, they could take him. I guess like somehow they find a way to get rid of Kamara, even though I think they would have like 25 million in dead cap if they cut
The way
Kamara.
they get rid of Kamara is he's not playing very much this year because he's going to get suspended.
Yeah.
And I guess they got to figure that out later.
I guess so. But they gave Jamal Williams like 10 million guaranteed. Kamara has a huge cap hit. Like, I'm not putting it
The
past
Saints.
the Saints to do that, but it'd be an insane way, like kind of an unprecedented way to allocate capital to the running back position in the modern
But the
NFL.
Saints are crazy with the cap.
Yeah.
I get it.
Anyways, like I think like my just to like round out my argument, and then I want to hear more about like the prospect stuff from you, Pat and Davis as well. Is like I think like you map out the likely landing spots. Maybe you want to add in a couple more here. Maybe you want to add in like Dallas, Tennessee, whoever you want to add in here. I think you're going to come out with like the majority of these landing spots being perceived as like negative by the market. Cause I think his ADP right now, like bakes in like the idea there's some clean workhorse, good offense landing spot for him. And why that probably is true, especially like this is not a dynasty take. This is purely like a redraft best ball take. I'm not worried about his landing spot in dynasty like at all, but I think the market will perceive like a slight negative hit based on like the most likely scenarios for his landing spot. So that's my point. How you want to like action that? I know Pat, you would argue that doesn't matter. Like he has a floor. I would argue maybe just wait post draft to get more exposure. But yeah, anyways, Pat, what do you think about Bijan as a prospect? Like, why are you sort of on the other side of this debate?
Yeah, I actually included your tweet in my article that I posted this morning on my top 3 running backs. Bijan, obviously number 1. And I get your point. I actually agree with your point that like in most outcomes, we're probably viewing it as like not a great landing spot, and maybe he falls a little bit in terms of his ADP. I have a different conclusion though, which is that I think he is a target at kind of the 2-3 turn area because look, I mean, if you draft him at pick 14 and he ends up being kind of like worth to you, like he's really more like worth pick 19. That's not a huge loss. On the other hand, if he goes to the Vikings and they cut Dalvin Cook, he's like the 106 or higher, right? If he goes to the Chiefs or the Bengals, we're talking about like huge price increase. And if you think about in terms of like auction dollars, you know, that's a guy jumping up into like potentially like $50+, you know, if he goes to one of these great spots from like, you know, maybe 30 or something. It's like, oh no, like he dropped from 30 to 25, not a big deal. But you have this huge upside scenario outcome where you, from the early second round, got a guy who's now like a top 3, top 5, maybe top 6 type of value. So I think you want to mix him in because the floor is still really high. Even if like the ADP floor is like a little lower than I'm suggesting, part of it for me is that I think he's such a strong prospect that if the market had him, it was like a 2-3 turn type of pick because he landed on the Patriots. And it's like, oh God, is he going to split time with Ramondre? My take would be, no, he's not. He's going to have this backfield by the time the fantasy playoffs roll around. And he's got a ton of upside. I'd be prioritizing him in that range. So that's part of it for me is that I guess I'm going to be higher than market if he's really any further down than like the mid-second.
Thought experiment. Joe Mixon gets cut. The Bengals select Bijan Robinson either with pick 28 or they trade up or whatever to get him. So Pirine's gone. Mixon's gone. What is the highest his August 1st Underdog ADP could be? What would Bijan's ADP max out at in a backfield by himself in Cincinnati?
I mean, I'd probably take him out of McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously,
I think Jefferson would still go ahead, and like that might be it.
So I think I agree with Pat because Chargers, if Eckler gets traded and Bijan's there, I think you're capturing the same amount of upside. Vikings is weird because Hayden schooled us on this last week, but it's like kind of hard for them to get rid of Dalvin Cook's money, and they just they what did they tag Madison, or they gave him an extension that's like actually like
extension. Yeah,
that's like kind of more money than you would expect Alexander Madison to be getting, but whatever. The Bills feels just like it's not going to happen now because they signed Damien Harris and they spent the second round pick on Cook. Like I think the Bills are probably taking a wide receiver there. But the Chiefs could do anything. The Chiefs the Chiefs have confounded me all offseason. I looked this up yesterday. The Chiefs have 4 players on the roster who are 30 or older. One of them is their long snapper. And they have 5 guys on the whole roster who make double-digit million salary, so $10 million more. It's like they have this very weird roster. I don't think they would take Bijan, but I also didn't think they were going to take Clyde. So
yeah, does taking Clyde make them more or less likely to take Bijan? Because we know they'll do it, but obviously it was a disaster.
Well, so the thing would be is you look at their offense and you're like, okay, you've got 34-year-old Travis Kelce. You got Sky who stinks. You got MVS who stinks. You let Hardman go. Where what it's you're really going to make Pat do this again? Like basically playing with his hand tied behind his back for a whole year? I think that whatever the market odds for the Chiefs to take Bijan, I think the reality odds are higher. I'm not saying they'll do it, but I'm saying Brett Veach is sitting on the clock at 31, and it's like Zay Flowers is gone, so he's looking at Josh Downs or Bijan Robinson. I could pretty easily see them in that room talking themselves into Bijan over the wide receiver 7.
Let's get ready to draft Jalen Hyatt way ahead of where we want to.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Wide receivers.
Yeah.
I guess, just to, again, play devil's advocate here a little bit. If you look at grinding the mocks, Bijan's expected draft position is like 16 overall, and the consensus big boards have him in like top 10-ish range. So I would say this chart is maybe a little misleading, that I think like the Bengals, Chiefs, Vikings, like the cleaner, better landing spots are also
I don't think he's getting there.
Ones.
My prognostication is I think if I had to put money on it, and maybe I will, maybe I'll go look at this while we're doing the show, I would say the Falcons and the Commanders are the 2 teams that feel most likely to not trade out, not get fancy, just be on the clock and just simply select him.
I would put the Bucks in there too, because like even though I think it's a dumb football move, like they should be rebuilding, not taking assets at running back. I think like their offseason signals so far are like that they're not going for the rebuild, like they're re-signing older.
Wait, how does it signal that?
No, dude, they cut so many guys. They've cut like 8 starters.
They also signed Baker Mayfield. That seems about as clear a sign as there is.
I think Levis is probably who I would say is most likely for them there. If he's again assuming, because Levis is going to do his pro day. Actually, he's going to start throwing in about 45 minutes, and we'll see how that goes. I actually think Levis could make himself some money with a pro day.
The point on the Bucs is sort of around their defensive signings. Like they re-signed Levante David, re-signed Jamel Dean to a huge contract. Like they're bringing back these veteran defensive players. So that was my point there, but I see what you guys are saying. Like, I don't know. The Bucs just strike me with, that organization as a team that would be in the mix for Bijan here, but who knows?
So those 3 are interesting though, because like to me, if he goes to the Falcons, he goes to the Commanders, he goes to the Bucs, I think like immediately he has those backfields. And I like Rashaad White and I like Tyler Algier. I'm not a big Brian Robinson guy.
You love Tyler Algier.
I do. I think he's good. Guess what? He's backing up Bijan Robinson. He's not in the mix.
Well, they could always move him back to his natural position. It's not even a wasted draft pick. They could move he could be a situational linebacker.
Yeah, he can play off-ball linebacker. It's a real value pick there for them. But yeah, I mean, I think he's probably going around pick 13, 14 in those spots because he's going to get projected a ton of touches in those backfields, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I still think like those offenses, all those offenses you mentioned are like going to project, except like maybe there's some upside with the Falcons. Like they have some pass catchers. Maybe you could argue that with the Commanders that Howell gets better. Bucks.
There's definitely some upside with the Falcons. We've seen them be a productive rushing offense, even with the offense being terrible. We know they're going to run the ball no matter what. Like the fact that they're bad almost doesn't matter because they'll just run until the game's over.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And maybe with Ritter, we see a little bit more pass catching value for the running backs versus Mariota. I know pass attempts, once they put Ritter instead of Mariota, jump by like 7 per game. So that could help the pass catching there for the running back. So yeah, I see that. I guess to put a bow on this discussion, I think Pat's argument is totally reasonable. I understand like if you still think he is a smash the 2-3 turn, if the market eventually values him there, like you're not really losing that much just drafting him now. I think I'll take like a slightly more conservative approach. I've drafted plenty of Bijan so far. I think at this point, I'm just going to wait post-draft and see where his value lands. But fair. He doesn't like, I'm not arguing like, oh, he's going to drop to the 5th if he lands with one of these teams now. Like I'm totally with you there.
I will say like, if he goes to the Bears or the Ravens, I don't love that.
No, both of those spots feel bad, quite bad.
Yeah, I don't think the Chargers with them keeping Eckler is out of the question. Like Eckler's cap hit is pretty small this year, and he's on the last year of his deal. I could see them looking towards the future, and I know even Eckler himself has said like, I want them to bring in running backs to take touches between the 20s for me. So like, I don't think he would, refuse to play or something.
But I think that would be okay. Like, because then you start to get more excited about the Chargers offense. Like, I don't think his price would go up, but I don't think you're not getting him at the 301 if he's on the Chargers.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. Tough to say. Anyways, let's jump into the risers for this week. That was a good discussion on Bijan. So again, the largest ADP risers from the past week. Again, we see a lot of the free agency impact at running back really showing its face here. The largest risers, once again, we have Rashaad Penny being the largest riser this week, up 27 spots. Other guys in the list, David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard, Damian Harris, James Robinson, Jeff Wilson, and then a couple wide receivers here. We have Brandon Cooks and Adam Thielen, and then finally Samaje Perine. So let's start with Penny. Davis, curious how much farther up the draft boards you're chasing Penny. He's jumped like almost 100-ish picks from his original price now. When do you start to get hesitant on Penny?
Probably 10 more picks. This kind of feels like the right range for him. It also feels like a good asymmetric bet to be making in these weird tournaments where, I mean, it's like, who knows if you're going to have the stacks right? Who knows you're not going to, week 17 matchups, like just feels, because it feels like no chance Penny is exactly the running back 28. Doesn't it feel like one of those things where it's either Rashaad Penny is a healthy scratch behind Trey Sermon for every week of the season, or he's Miles Sanders from last year?
God, please, no. That would be so brutal.
Trey Sermon, I believe, makes more money than Rashaad Penny.
Oh man.
I believe if we're doing the who makes more money than Kerrane, I believe Sermon is on a larger contract than Penny because he was a 2nd-round pick and Penny is a veteran minimum.
Let me give some names who got more guaranteed money than Rashaad Penny in free agency this year. Donta Foreman, Boston Scott, Justice Hill, Travis Homer, like 40-year-old.
Who did Justice Hill sign with?
The Ravens. He's back on a
just re-signed. Okay.
2-year, $4 million, got $1.25 million guaranteed. I don't know why.
That's like like how the Patriots just gave $8 million to a long snapper. It's all about like special teams and stuff. It's got to be.
Yeah, but I don't know, Pat. What do you think? Like, obviously, I guess the question is kind of like, when does the downside matter? I think at pick 111, like, I don't care that much if he's a 0. It's not going to hurt me that much unless I had like 100% exposure. But at some point, like the floor has to matter, right?
Yeah, I think, but I don't think we're there yet. And I've still been taking him.
Mm-hmm.
You get to that range, like, in the 9th or 10th or whatever, like, I think he's a pretty good pick. So, I guess the thing with the floor is like he's so good on early downs that it's hard for me to feel like it's going to be Ronald Jones last year where he's just a healthy scratch all season. I guess that's possible. The contract would point to that as a possibility, but I'm thinking more like, this guy struggled with injuries his entire career. That's also got to have factored into why he didn't have a team really commit anything to him. His weekly ceiling is really, really high. And so, like, I think, look, if you get a 0 for most of the year and then you get a Rashaad Penny healthy 3-game stretch in the fantasy playoffs, like, that pays for itself and then some in the 9th or 10th. I don't think you start really like hurting your advance rates until he moves up by like another couple rounds.
Yeah, I think I have nothing else to add.
You could even view him as like a handcuff, honestly, at this price. Like, let's say they do take Bijan, like Penny could still be a high upside handcuff to Bijan at that price.
Yeah, it's a pricey handcuff, but it's not like a crazy price to pay, just given how good the offense is. So right. I agree.
Yeah, and frankly, the other, like, I guess you could compare him to other positions. Like, the other running backs in this range don't have super high floors either, really. The wide receivers are almost like entirely wiped out at this point. Yeah. So the opportunity cost is still at a point where I'm not too concerned. I think, like, I've been still clicking him, like, not as aggressively as it was when he was at pick 180, but I've been still clicking him at around this price. I think like I'd have to start thinking harder about it at like pick like 85, 90, but I think up until that point, I'm still like fine with it. Yeah. Okay. Another guy, second biggest riser here, David Montgomery, huge week for DMont Nation. He's up 20 spots, 19% increase in ADP. I've heard a lot of like the Swift versus Montgomery stuff the past couple weeks. Pat, do you have any takes on Montgomery and your sort of overall approach to how you're drafting the Detroit backfield? I think Swift has fallen to like the mid 60s, if I remember that right. I can double check that.
Yeah, we had, I think it was, ship chasing. And this was because, no one was drafting any running backs as usual in that draft. And Swift fell to the 7th round. And at that price, I'm very in. I think it's a great bet, but I don't love him in the 6th. I just feel like, they've told us about every way they possibly can that they're not that into him. And he's probably going to be, kind of a rotational guy. They've also shown us last year that they'll mix in Justin Jackson. They would probably play Craig Reynolds a fair amount or whatever. It doesn't really matter who the guy is. I don't think Swift really has a path to, like, in any particular game, even a workhorse role. So he's an efficiency bet. He's like, he scores 2 touchdowns. He takes a reception to the house. Like, he's very live to do that stuff. But I think you want to keep the price as cheap as possible. Montgomery at pick 89 now. I mean, that's probably okay.
You're literally paying for a 14 touchdown season. Doesn't it sort of feel that way?
Yeah. I still want, so he's in the 8th and Swift's like, if Swift's in the 7th and he's in the 8th, I'm definitely taking Swift.
Okay. Thought experiment, Sam. DeAndre Swift shows up to camp, gets hurt again. Dan Campbell's like, dude, enough of cutting. Enough. Like, enough of this, dude. I did an anti-Swift tweet earlier today, so I got some more data if we want to go there. What is David Montgomery in this offense, on this team with this coaching staff? What is like the best season he could have? What does it look like?
I think it could be like a Joe Mixon season from 2 years ago or something like that. Like low end RB1,
Okay,
not amazing.
If you think that's the range, then this is a great price.
I think the range is that he's Devin Singletary from 2 years ago when the Bills gave him everything.
Okay, let me. So I looked into this. Like, I was totally on the side of Swift versus Montgomery. You know, the Swift is a way better talent. I want to be on the side of Swift. So I looked into their rushing and receiving grades from PFF over the past 3 years. And if you adjust them for like numbers of rushes and routes, meaning like in the years where Swift got more rushes, you would like weight that grade more than the year where he got injured and only had 70 rushes. So you take the weighted average of their rush and receiving grades over the last 3 years. Montgomery's rush grade is 73, Swift's is 70. Montgomery's receiving grade is 66, Swift's is 64. So like, I don't know. And like, I think we've also seen and how coaches view these guys, that coaches have been willing to give Montgomery much larger workloads than they've been willing to give Swift. And they just gave Montgomery a ton of money for a free agent running back. I think we also have to think about Montgomery. He had a 6-game stretch to end 2020. This was with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, whereas half PPR game logs, not full PPR, half PPR game logs, 23 points, 25 points, 23 points, 29 points, 19 points, 24 points. So averaged 24 half PPR points over a 6-game stretch with Mitch Trubisky. I don't know. I'd like in that scenario you described, Davis, where Swift is gone.
Do you remember when that actually happened though? There was like
it was a lot of big
softest teams. Like he was like a weekly play in DFS because he was like getting just like the softest rushing matchups. But
I don't know, but it's still a good situation. Like this situation is better than the Chicago Bears Trubisky led offense. Like I see your point there. It was like weak defenses, but I don't know, 24 half PPR points per game over a 6-game stretch. Like I think the upside is certainly there in the scenario that Davis presented, where like they're done with Swift. I think low end RB1 season is certainly in play for Montgomery.
I would definitely push back on the like David Montgomery is good narrative. He was like in rush yards over expected per attempt. He was very bad last year. Only were Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter, James Robinson, Leonard Fournette, Najee Harris, Zeke, Rashaad White, Dalvin Cook, and Antonio Gibson were the only running backs who were worse than him last year. He hasn't been as efficient as a receiver in yards per route run as Swift. He's like fine as a receiver. If Swift was gone in Davis's analogy, he probably would just like soak up a bunch of dump offs, but he's not a playmaker. He makes guys like miss.
Wouldn't it just be like Justin Jackson playing a lot on third downs?
Yeah.
And I'm skeptical of the grades with Montgomery in particular because he does like make guys miss, but then he doesn't move forward afterwards.
Wasn't
does the
that
thing and then he just sits.
Wasn't that the thing with him coming out as a prospect? Like, wasn't the thing that people who liked him really latched onto was that at Iowa State he was like either really good at breaking tackles or really good at causing. I don't remember which metric people were really good. Obviously, the thing everyone thinks
force
of
missed tackles per touch is I think he was and on Pro Football Reference as well. His like broken tackle stuff was really strong.
I just think anyone who's watched him play can understand that it's totally like he just is a slow lumbering type. Like he's not bad. I think he's gonna fit in pretty well. Like I think he is. I think he's better than Jamal Williams. Like I think he's probably a better north-south and a little bit more capable. Like the thing was Jamal Williams in all those games Swift missed. I remember every week I'd be doing the projections and I'd be like, all right, well, Swift's out. So I got to give Jamal Williams like an 8% target share probably. And his target share went down in the games that DeAndre Swift missed. It was like insane. It got down to below 4%. So I think honestly, to me, the Montgomery thing is totally more about them just being over, like Dan Campbell and his staff just being over DeAndre Swift than it is about being like, I mean, it's a big contract for him. And I have trouble seeing a real ceiling. He feels like a good advance rate. Tough to see me selling myself on that's who you needed in week 17.
I guess like the other thing with Montgomery, like the guys in his range are all guys that can get completely wiped out by Bijan Robinson. Khalil Herbert, Rashaad White, James Cook, Tyler Algier, Isaiah Pacheco. Those are all the guys going right around him. I think there's like very little risk for like a huge running back in the draft going to Detroit. So I don't know. It's a little bit of like the safety relative to those other guys. He just got paid. Like I feel a lot better about that than Rashaad White, James Cook, Tyler Algier. Better offense too.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. It is a deep running back class though. So like by the end of the year, do they take a rookie who actually is someone they end up trusting on early downs? Like, is this a 3-way split by the end of the year? I could see that. Like talent is protection. If you believe that a guy is good, then you're going to feel much better about his role lasting over the course of the year. I think Montgomery being like okay at everything, but not really that great, does put him at some risk. I agree with you. It's not going to be Bijan, but someone else could come in and start playing really well. And it could be like a Pacheco thing where that guy's role grows over the course of the year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see with Montgomery versus Swift. It'll be an interesting debate. Like I kind of thought that at some point their ADPs will like flip. So then for me, that gets even more interesting, but we'll see if it trends all the way in that direction.
Oh, if they flip, I mean, I'm going to have a lot of Swift.
Yeah, I probably would too, depending like sort of where that converges.
I was hoping that the market might let us have like 10th round Montgomery, and then I would be in. But at this price, makes me a little queasy. I should probably mix him in though.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk Tony Pollard. We had been talking about him, I don't know, ever since like Pat, since you started looking at drafts, I think since I started looking at drafts, we've been mentioning Pollard as just sort of a clear, like weirdly mispriced player at around pick 40. He has now jumped up to pick 30. I guess Davis, I'll put this to you first. What do you think about Pollard's increase in price, and would you continue to chase that higher upwards?
I mean, I think you just keep chasing Pollard until they give you a reason not to. I mean, obviously, I think you got like a bazillion outs. I mean, Pollard might just get there on efficiency the way he got there on efficiency the last 2 years. I mean, he was the running back 8 last year, and Zeke missed 2 games last year, I think 2 or 3 games, but still, he just absolutely crushed. I think it's pretty unlikely the Cowboys take Bijan. I think, very similar to the Texans signing Devin Singletary, the Dallas Cowboys signing Ronald Jones is probably more of a signal of admission that they like Pollard than that they are looking to replace him.
I agree with you.
It's sad. I mean, look, we love Rojo, we love you, but I don't think you're threatening. If you didn't threaten 7th round rookie Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know if you're going to threaten Tony Pollard, who's playing on the franchise tag.
I am excited for when Tony Pollard has a hit pointer or something, and I can jam Rojo and DFS.
Yeah,
Pat, bringing the Bijan conversation back. You mentioned the Bears and Ravens as your like least favorite landing spots for Bijan. So let's say the Cowboys add nobody else. It's just Pollard, Malik Davis, Ronald Jones, and Bijan goes to the Bears. Who would you rather have?
I think Pollard. You're just not getting any receiving work from Bijan there, and it's like now he's this really awesome 2-down guy, but is he like definitely a better early down guy than Nick Chubb? Yeah, because part of the play with Bijan is that he's like going to get way more receiving work than Nick Chubb. He's going to play every down, but is he going to get more receiving work if he's on the Bears?
No.
So that's where it starts to feel like, okay, now Bijan really is kind of more of a 3rd round value.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm in the same boat there with Pollard, and like obviously Bijan's an amazing prospect, the best we've seen since Barkley, Zeke, however you want to put the line in the sand there. But it's still projecting a guy into the NFL. We know Pollard is amazing, so like I'm 95% confident Bijan's going to be amazing. But if I know Pollard's already amazing, is in a better situation, yeah, I would probably take him over in that situation. Other guys, a couple like more deeper guys on this list. Damien Harris, James Robinson, Jeff Wilson, and Samaje Perine. Let's stick with the running backs first. Pat, any of these risers that you're not buying or you're questioning why they're going up boards?
James Robinson. What's the
That's a
appeal?
gross one.
I mean, I guess that he has a job. Is that why he's rising?
I think people are I assume Pierre Strong is one of our fallers. So the market is just saying James Robinson is the complement, not Pierre Strong / Kevin Harris.
This James Robinson,
that's a reason to buy Pierre Strong. You know, if Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong were one person, I would be very bullish on that one running back. It's just tough because it's like you could be like directionally accurate and bet on Pierre Strong, and then it turns out it's Kevin Harris. So that part of it makes it tough. But I'm not betting on James Robinson.
Underdog should find a way to like securitize like the RB4 and RB5s on a certain team.
Yeah, RB4, Patriots RB4. I'm drafting.
Yeah. I think the Robinson thing, I think like the contract was a little bit of funny money that got people confused. Like it came out as 2 years, $8 million. It's actually zero guaranteed money on that contract. Yeah. So it could be like, let's get a look at him in camp. Like if he's back to old James Robinson, you know, maybe miraculously he does sort of the Cam Akers thing where he recovers to, you know, pre-Achilles form, and then we get an okay deal on him. Otherwise, we just cut him. I think that's sort of the Pats play here. So I'm not drafting him at all. I think he could easily be cut.
Yeah. And if he's not cut,
I agree with that.
What's the upside? Even if Stevenson went down, do we think it would be workhorse James Robinson? Because I do not.
That's what the James Robinson drafters are saying, though. They're saying that of the four guys who are on the roster right now, he's the I mean, he weighs more than Pierre Strong. I don't know about Kevin Harris, but he would be the most likely big-bodied goal line type guy.
I think people wouldn't even take Ramondre because it's like, oh God, Patriots running back, can't draft him. It's always a gross committee. Like, and now Ramondre gets hurt and it's not a gross committee. It's the James Robinson show. Like, give me a break. Like, we know it would be a gross committee if James Robinson didn't show anything last year coming off the torn Achilles. He'd have to be way, way better. I don't even know that like Jacksonville era James Robinson would like have Bill Belichick's full trust in his first year. The guy generally likes committees. So
yeah, this is what happens. Ramondre gets injured week 6, has to miss a game. We find out 2 hours before kickoff that James Robinson has been healthy scratch for JJ Taylor off the practice squad.
Yes, JJ Taylor's back.
Yeah, it's
producer
it's
4-minute JJ Taylor highlight reel. I'm not buying 2 of these. Adam Thielen will be on 0 of my fantasy teams, and I can't imagine Jeff Wilson will be on any of my teams either. Miami, I would make Miami like a minus 500 favorite to add a running back in the draft, maybe even more than that. Like maybe 2, right? Maybe even multiple running backs. Like Miami got so little production out of their running backs, and I feel like we all kind of became enamored by the Tyreek, Jaylen Waddle, and then River Crack Raft's coming out, and Trent Sherfield just scored an 80-yard touchdown, but like Mike McDaniel is a Shanahan acolyte. He wants to run the ball, dude. He let Mike Gesicki go. Look at all the tight ends they have on their roster. All their tight ends are like monosyllabic, Big
Durham
Ten.
Smythe.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like those dudes are out there to fucking grate the road. That's why
they are.
That is why they're on the team. So and Jeff, look, all due respect to Raheem Mostert, all due respect to Jeff Wilson. These are like the most replacement level guys in the NFL. So I think, it just seems bad. But Perine, I'm chasing all the way up. Did you guys see the Sean Payton stuff this last week? He was like, I went out and recruited Samaje Perine. Like I wanted Samaje Perine. And he was saying like, and then Perine at the same, it was an article where they both gave quotes, and Perine was like, I was very convinced by his sales pitch, basically like he's going to play me a shit ton because Javonte Williams isn't going to be 100% all year.
Yeah.
All right.
Back to I want to get to the Perine. Yeah. I like the P-Run one. Back to Wilson, Davis. I had the same thought as you about the Dolphins. They only have 4 picks in this draft in total, and 2 of them.
I guess I kind of forgot that they gave up 2 picks, right?
Yeah, they only have their only day 2 picks are pick 51 and pick 84. Then they don't pick again until pick 197 and pick 238. They did give both Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert around $2 million in guaranteed at signing. So I think they're gonna add 1 running back. I think that still makes like either Wilson or Mostert worth drafting in this range. Like I think it's still fair, like handcuff price, 164. Like I don't know. Worst case scenario, pick 51. They could get like Gibbs or Charbonnet. Like pick 84. Maybe they're in the range for like Roschon, Kendre Miller. Like totally plausible scenarios. But I think it might be hard for them to like draft 2 like better running backs than Jeff Wilson. So that's my only slight pushback there. That I think I'm okay with Wilson at that price.
Hear me out. Undrafted free agent Deuce Vaughn to the Miami Dolphins. Who objects?
Not me.
I don't ask very much out of the NFL, but just can I get like a NFL game of seeing what Deuce Vaughn can do out in an NFL? That's all I want. I just want to see it happen once.
When's his pro day? Are we getting a workout?
That's a good question.
He should just pull the Sean Tucker.
Run a 5 flat 3-cone, Deuce. That's what we need out of you.
Run
the fastest 3-cone in human history.
He's got to just release the YouTube
their
video.
Their pro day is next Friday.
All right, mark it on your calendars. What time is it? During ADP chasing?
It's at 3:00. So no, it'll just get done.
Should we move the show?
Should we go? I haven't been back to my college like since I graduated. Or no, I've been back once. Dude. We could do a whole K-State trip and go hang out.
Let's do it, man.
At all my old haunts. We could go see my old college house.
How big is the corporate budget for ADP chasing? Do they allocate some travel funds this quarter?
Yeah, we gotta get on the horn. We gotta get on the horn to Mr. Overzet, and we'll see.
Yeah, let's see if we can get Legendary Upside to sponsor this thing.
I for sure can. We'll have couches to crash on, though. No doubt about it. So we can take the housing budget out of it.
This does seem like kind of a bucket list item.
Imagine how many retweets and faves a picture of me, you, and Deuce Vaughn would get. Kerrane.
Oh my god! Okay, I am 100% it. The engagement is just too good to pass up.
That's taller between you and Deuce Vaughn, Davis.
He's like an inch taller than me, probably. Me and Deuce Vaughn doing the short shuttle at the same time, and we do a little side by side.
Oh god. we need to find out who he's signed with, who's his agent. Let's get.
I know. I bet I can figure this stuff out. Let's do this. Let's get Deuce Vaughn on at least one episode of ADP chasing this offseason. I bet we can. Honest to God, I bet we can.
Yeah, we might have to fudge the numbers so he looks like the biggest riser, maybe as to get him on the show. But that'd be great.
The biggest riser in our hearts, Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah. Let's before we move on to followers, I want to talk Brandin Cooks. I think this is like potentially the most interesting wide receiver move of the offseason besides DJ Moore to the Bears. Yeah, curious what you guys think about going around pick 90 now. I still think that's like quite good considering the other wide receivers in that range, but yeah, is he too old? Are we worried about sort of him falling off with the Texans potentially? What do we think there?
I just am worried about, I guess the thing with Cooks is he's just done this so many times. He's been traded 4 times and pretty much has always been good in the new spot. I think the thing you worry about is that clearly CD is better than him, and he might just what isn't there just a chance that Gallup is a little bit better 2 years removed from the ACL, and now Brandin Cooks is just basically Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the Dallas Cowboys?
There's a chance of that, but he hasn't fallen off that dramatically. I think
what was his yards per route run stuff like last year?
It was like 1.8 to 1.5-ish range, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah. So I will also throw out there that Matt Harmon at Reception Perception actually says that, like, by his charting, Brandin Cooks has not fallen off at all. And actually his last couple years with the Texans, he's been like better at success rate versus man. That's been hidden in like yards per route run because he's been with, fucking Davis Mills and garbage.
He also was better than I gave him credit for, 1.64, which is not great, but it's not like concerning. And he was 1.96 2 years ago, which is actually extremely good given he was playing with Davis Mills.
Yeah. I think your scenario is plausible, though, Davis. Like, I think people are maybe sleeping a little bit on Gallup just because the ACL stuff can sometimes take 2 years for guys to bounce back. But I still think, like, the Cowboys in general, like, just seemed a little too cheap. And I think, like, they should have 2 pass catchers going in the top 80 picks, probably. I don't know. Maybe not with McCarthy, but I also
think you want to think about this in terms of like the larger positional prices, and there are not a lot of wide receivers left at pick 89.
Yeah,
this is
the big thing.
Yeah, so I think he's a good pick there still, and if we're talking about a draft landscape post NFL draft or whenever running backs just start going higher, sometime in July or August, this price would translate to like maybe more like pick 100. You know what I mean? So I think he's a pretty good pick still. Okay,
here's a question. Just let's say, like, is CD being out good or bad for Cooks though? Like is he a guy who gains contingent value, or does he actually? I can't decide. I mean, also part of it.
Go ahead.
Part of it is I don't know what the Cowboys are going to look like without Kellen Moore. Like these 2 guys who are in charge of the Cowboys this year are like architects of some of the worst offenses we've seen with good quarterbacks, right? Schottenheimer and McCarthy have been run out of town by Hall of Fame level like Brian Schottenheimer was the Jacksonville Jaguars 2021 offensive coordinator. Like he's been so bad.
Yeah, but in some ways, I wonder if that makes CD a little bit riskier because, he's really expensive. And the whole thing with McCarthy and Schottenheimer is that their offenses are basically like, all right, go do your thing, man. Like they don't scheme anything. It's like, go win. But like Cooks is someone I actually feel pretty good about doing that. He's been in terrible offenses. He's been in a million different offenses. He's always succeeded reasonably well no matter where he's been. Like I actually am confident that if you just like have him go run the routes they like him to run, he'll do good on those routes. He'll get open enough. So especially with Lamb being there to help that, I think, we've also seen him be a target hog when there's not anyone else to throw to. We've seen him operate along Will Fuller and be a good secondary option. So I feel like kind of both paths are viable. If Lamb were to get hurt, he'd have a lot of value, I think. If Lamb's there, he can be a solid wide receiver 2 on that team.
All right. That seems about
fair.
right.
Let's talk fallers. So the largest fallers over the past week, we again have similar names here. Kayshon Boutte, Lamar Jackson, Austin Eckler, and Joe Burrow appear in the list for the second week in a row. And then guys like Swift, Daniel Bellinger with Waller signing on the Giants. Zeke obviously got cut. Sam Howell, I assume that's Brissett related. Pierre Strong, James Robinson related, and Isaiah McKenzie got cut. That rounds out the fallers here for the past week. I wanted to have a bit of the quarterback discussion with you guys this week. It seems like the early quarterback drafters are capitulating a little bit.
That's totally what's happening.
Yeah. We saw Mahomes in this list last week. Burrow and Jackson on it for this second week in a row. Yeah, is this second round quarterback meta gonna die by the time Best Ball Mania 4 comes out?
It's gonna be big once the not even the casuals, because you got to be pretty sick to be drafting Best Ball Mania 3 teams in May, but even when the less true degen mentally ill people get drafting, I think we're gonna see the quarterbacks continue to fall.
I do love this like categorization of the best ball degenerates of like May people like, but you still like go out to dinner and stuff and hang out with people occasionally. It's
Yeah.
like you're not the level of sicko drafting today.
March drafters haven't touched grass since they don't remember. They don't even they have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I think it'll definitely change, but I guess it's sort of like does it matter, because this tournament's going to close and these ADPs will be what they are, and then there'll be different ADPs, and you could be someone that's drafting quarterback early now, and then in that other environment be someone who's waiting longer. But I do feel like this is sort of the worst time to capitulate, because like Richardson is now expensive. I feel worse about waiting at quarterback than I did early in the offseason. Like I was not drafting any of these really pricey quarterbacks to begin big board drafts, because I was just like, I'll take 3 and draft Richardson, or I'll tack on Bryce Young or whatever. Like Bryce Young was a little more inexpensive as well, I think. But now I've actually mixed them in a little bit because I'm not as confident that I can figure out quarterback later. So I've kind of gone the other way. I am occasionally drafting some of these second round quarterbacks now.
Yeah, at this point, like they're not going to drop. Like anyone's either getting them in the late second or early third. And is that really like a difference? I would say not really. Like you're just kind of flipping. Like instead of taking, Josh Jacobs in the third and Mahomes in the second, you're taking Josh Jacobs in the second, Mahomes in the third, or whatever player you want to substitute in there, right? Like I'm skeptical it matters that much if that's the only drop we're seeing. So I'm kind of with you, Pat, that I'm fine. Just because now I know, like, oh, I'm not getting bamboozled by like stupid, like early prices for them. Like I'm pretty confident we're getting the same ish prices throughout the entire big board. Like at this point, if you want to take the high ceiling quarterbacks, I'm fine with it if it's stacked. Yeah. I don't know. Don't have a hot take.
So I did a couple drafts this week, and I just like intuitively felt the expensive quarterback prices were like insane. Like every time I was on the clock and I saw like Mahomes, Hurts out, I was just like, I can't click these. Whereas the maybe previously in the past, sort of the pick 60 through pick 80 guys, I would have been like, that's the worst range to draft a quarterback. You're sort of like overpaying for the security of just knowing they have a job for 16 weeks. Like Trevor Lawrence to me feels like a really good pocket of the draft where there's not anyone I'm absolutely begging to take there. So that one was interesting. Do we think Elijah Moore will be on the biggest risers next week?
Yeah, probably, right? Although he was always a little expensive. So I don't know. Now it just feels like he's not a terrible pick.
Well, it just depends on where Leone ranks him, right? I mean, at the end of the day.
Let me get some insider info on what Leone's ranks are going to be.
Let's DM Leone and see if his price is going to rise.
So right now, Elijah Moore is the wide receiver 52. I'll pull up ETR and see where he's ranked right now. I bet he's no, because he's too young. Leone might not be into the 23-year-old wide receiver.
Plus, you do have to split up targets between Njoku, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Cooper, and Moore. So I bet he's lower than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
He's
NFL.
only, I think, so this news has been out for what, 3 days now? 2 days?
Yeah.
I kind of forget. And he's up 1 spot over the past week. So maybe there's like a lag and he's going to rise a little more. But I kind of think the market is treating this as like equivalent situation. I think like in both situations, you had sort of a clear alpha, like Amari Cooper and Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Wilson's better than Cooper, but sort of clear target earners in their teams. And then you have like secondary guys that are going to kind of get in the way for various reasons. Allen Lazard, because Aaron Rodgers loves him. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones, because I think he's good at what he does, running like deep clear out routes. So I don't know. I guess like, does Elijah Moore see snaps in 2 wide receiver sets? That's what I'm trying to think through. Like probably, but I'm not sure though.
I don't think so, but I bet they run a decent amount of 3. So maybe it doesn't matter a ton.
He's gonna be behind DPJ in 2 wide.
It kind of matters for the TD stuff unless he just gets a ton of deep touchdowns.
Yeah, what would you project his route rate to be? Like probably like 75 or 80%? Like
No,
don't
I
think he's
see.
gonna
That's
be-
the thing, though. Is maybe he only plays 65% of the snaps, but I bet his route rate's really good.
You do? Okay.
Because Cleveland is such a gotta run the dang ball Nick Chubb type vibe. They're just gonna
Yeah.
it's just gonna be Harrison Bryant.
You know how they talk in Cleveland.
I don't even know. That's a good. I have no idea what Stefanski even sounds like. But to me, that's what anyone who's ever coached Nick Chubb has to have, like a really
Yeah, they do.
overwrought Southern accent, basically.
Once you meet Nick Chubb, you turn into Foghorn Leghorn.
Right. I mean, my general thought would just be is like that just all feels like window dressing because either it's Elijah Moore is actually as good as we always thought he was, and now he doesn't have a coach and a quarterback who hates him, or he's not that good, right? I don't think like at a wide receiver 52 price, I think you're really it's actually what we just talked about with Penny earlier. Like there's no way Elijah Moore finishes wide receiver 52. It's either like he's wide receiver 29 or like he's like not on the team and they just cut him or something,
Yeah.
Like maybe he's just got a bad attitude.
Yeah.
I think he has a little bit of like contingent upside because I kind of agree with you, Pat, that I would not project him to play in two wide receiver sets. But I think if you believe what he did as a rookie, I think he showed he like can win versus man coverage. I know the people who chart him sort of showed that. So like I think pick 110, doesn't project for 3 wide receiver sets, but he's not a pure slot. He could do it if it was called upon. I think it's like a fine price. I'm not super pumped about it, but if I took Deshaun Watson, like I'd make it somewhat of a priority to get more. I think there's enough upside there.
Are you taking DPJ or more?
Probably they're right next to each other.
More. Come on.
I think more too,
DPJ is team prayer yards,
Yeah. I think I'm with you guys. I think it's close.
Doesn't it feel like also it's really more about like
I saw Sam counting snaps in his head.
Yeah. Isn't it also kind of more like is Deshaun Watson just going to be total ass again or is he going to be good? That also feels like a huge part of it.
Yeah. DPJ.
Yeah, but if he's good, if Watson's good, one path to that, to him kind of taking that step and being more comfortable is that Moore is also good. Like they feel more plausibly, like really positively correlated than him and DPJ.
More 11 personnel instead of 12 personnel should also theoretically help too. Cause like 12 personnel is asking your quarterback to do a lot because no one's taking Chubb seriously as a receiver. And no one's taking Harrison Bryant seriously as a receiver.
Right.
The Cleveland stack is kind of interesting. Like you could get Deshaun and Njoku, pick your poison, Moore versus DPJ, all in
it's a really easy stack.
8, 10, and 11. And like that feels like pretty good upside for the cost, to be honest. I hate saying it because I fucking hate drafting Deshaun Watson. I have for the past couple of years, but it's probably smart.
I agree.
What can you do?
Okay, the rest of these dusty veterans I don't really want to talk about. We've already had the Swift discussion. Why don't we move on to the stacks, unless last chance here if you guys want to talk about Daniel Bellinger or something like that. Otherwise, let's move on.
Actually, I got one. Shouldn't we be buying the dip on Zeke, buying the dip here on Zeke a little bit? Because whatever team signs him is going to give him the ball. Like this is Kerrane, you know what this is? This is a fucking 2020 Fournette situation. Not to the same extent because I think Zeke has so little juice, and Fournette clearly at least had juice left as a rusher. But like he's gonna sign to one of these teams and get 40 catches, 180 rushes, and 10 touchdowns. Like it's just gonna happen.
What I would say, compared to the Fournette situation, Fournette actually was not a good pick in 2020. He ended up being a really good pick in 2021.
Right.
Once he was there for the year. But remember, it was playoff Lenny. He didn't do anything really until the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's right.
I think that, maybe you could see that type of situation where he goes somewhere behind a guy, and it's kind of like he just kind of makes it gross. He doesn't actually pay off anything really. He just like destroys someone else's value. But I think
Let me throw out a hypothetical because the Bengals were on his final list of teams. Am I making that up? I think they.
Well, that was the other thing that's I think sort of a red flag, right? He puts out this list of teams, and it's like the three finalists for Zeke, and it like then the reports come out like these like the Eagles are like, yeah, we've not talked to him. Like the finalists are he's saying they're the finalists. Like
it's the agents are saying that to get him some money. I think.
Yeah, that is a red flag.
I think they're putting it out there to get him a job.
Okay, but how much? Okay, Ezekiel Elliott in the Joe Mixon role. Joe Mixon gets cut. How much worse is Zeke than Joe Mixon?
A lot worse.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a lot worse.
Well, is that a Mixon take or a Zeke take?
It's a Mixon take. It's like okay. Mixon, I think, had a lot of juice when he was like 24, but Mixon's 28 now.
Is he that old? He came in
maybe he's not that old.
You gotta add. Yeah, you added 2 years. He does turn 27 in July.
That's what I do. So whenever I say an age, you just gotta know when it's a guy I don't like, it's 2 years older than he actually is. Older.
Only a year plus.
So Leonard Fournette is 32. It's like by that math.
Yeah, he might be. He's 40 for me.
Yeah.
I guess I think it feels like we're timing the bottom a little bit. If you take Zeke now, like, is he gonna fall this much farther? I don't know. Like, I guess it depends how much you care about getting exposure to Zeke this year. If you want exposure, I think you draft him now because I think he probably goes up a little bit. But we'll see.
And I guess the thing that you have with Zeke is that he was playing through injury and he's not as dusty as he looked.
That's been the argument for what, like 4 years in a row for him.
It is, but I mean, maybe this time it'll work, And at this price, like if he's just not complete dust and then he lands somewhere, and he could land like if he lands with the Chargers or whatever, if he lands with the Chiefs, or the Bengals or whatever, like there are spots where it's not that bad. And pick 150. I mean, I don't know. There are other guys that I like there more than Zeke still. I wish he'd fall a little further, I guess. Like I want Elijah Mitchell still over Zeke. I think I want Damien Harris still over Zeke.
Those guys are now going slightly.
I mean, Damien Harris is an absolute jam. Damien Harris is like you should take him like where Penny's going.
Really? So aren't you worried at all about like Josh Allen stealing goal line work and then him getting boxed out of receiving work and now he's like just kind of the trap back?
Yeah, but the trap back on the third best offense in the NFL probably should go higher than 150, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
If you settle, like I think he'll probably settle in the Singletary like 100 to 1.
That's how it's like. I would draft Damien Harris, like except Damien Harris is probably better than Devin Singletary, who's like one of the least athletic running backs we've ever seen.
Damien Harris had a lot of like long breakaway runs in the Pats like 2 years ago when he led the NFL in rushing TDs. Like he's not a super fast guy, but he has way more than Singletary does in the open field in terms of taking, a 10-yard run and making it a 50-yard run. He can do that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with that.
All right, let's talk stacks here. So this is the same chart we showed for the past couple weeks. This chart is a little tough to digest, so I'll try to break it down a little bit better than I have previously. So this is the gray bars here.
I did call this chart out last week.
Yeah, it's yeah. I totally. Sometimes I make a chart and I'm like, it makes total sense to me, but no one else has actually done the work to make the chart, so it's super confusing to everyone else. So
if you look at it for a second, it does make sense. You just need to digest it a little.
Yeah, I think the best way to read it is the gray bars are sort of the price of the stack. That's the average of the double stack ADP, so the quarterback and the top two pass catchers. So that's sorted left to right from the most expensive stacks to the cheapest stacks. So Philly, Bengals on the far left side, New England, Carolina, far right side. The colored bars are the positions that make up the double stack. So the purple bars are the quarterbacks and the red and yellow bars are the pass catchers. So you can see the average prices and you can also see like, oh, if I look at Kansas City, I can see that, Kelsey's way up in the first round. That's the red bar. The purple bar is Mahomes, like mid third round. And then that third bar is Tony, the second pass catcher at pick 180 or whatever, or sorry, at pick 80. So that's sort of the way to read the chart. The changes I made this week is to sort of fairly compare some of these teams that are going to draft a rookie quarterback. I just plugged in the chalk landing spots for those teams. So I put CJ Stroud on the Panthers. I put Bryce Young on the Texans, and I put Anthony Richardson on the Colts. I didn't assign Will Levis anywhere because he's being drafted so late that it wouldn't affect the chart, I don't think. And I also assigned Aaron Rodgers to the Jets here. So that makes those teams a little more comparable. What I wanted to talk about is if you go to the far right side of this chart and look at the cheapest stacks, you got Carolina, Houston, and Indianapolis, all extremely cheap, all teams that were expecting to draft rookie quarterbacks. My kind of takeaway from this is I think there's a lot of upside in those three teams because their rookie quarterbacks are very cheap, because their pass catchers are very cheap. And, especially Stroud and Young have upside of being really good NFL passers, maybe not in year one, but that's sort of what they project as. So I'm pretty excited. The pass catchers are gross to click on, but Houston and Carolina, if you kind of get boxed out of stacks early on, I love the Houston, Carolina, Stroud, Bryce Young stacks you can build at the end of the draft. So I think it's a lot of upside at zero cost right now. So yeah, Pat, what do you think about that? Stacking up some of the rookie quarterback likely teams.
I like it. It's something I've been doing. I like both of those. Well, I like the Texans pass catching clicks more. I wrote a post on a Legendary Upside about Nico Collins. That one's for free. Go check that out. I think John Mechie's somewhat interesting. I think they'll probably draft a receiver.
Do we have an update on him? Is there an update on is he going to play football?
I thought he was playing football. Didn't he?
I haven't heard anything, to be honest.
All I know about John Mechie is that 11 months ago they said he's got cancer. He's not playing football. That's all I know.
Oh, I had heard some pretty positive stuff in terms of his recovery, but I guess I don't 100% know that he's playing football this year.
I'm not. I didn't mean that to sow discontent. I literally did. I didn't actually know.
Yeah,
there's been some reports a couple weeks ago that are positive, but not saying anything definitive. Saying he's steadily recovering. I think it's kind of a wait and see with him right now.
Sure.
Well, I've drafted more Nico Collins, which is good. But I also think they're probably drafting somebody. So if you're going to mix in, some of these other rookies, you might end up with a stack there. The Carolina one's a little bit less fun. I don't really like taking Adam Thielen. I've taken some Terrace Marshall just because I feel like he's probably going to have some routes. And I've taken Zabisca for the lulz.
Yeah. Are you aware they signed DJ Shark today?
Did they? Oh, man.
It's literally as we got on the air.
I was not. That's a bummer for Shark as well.
Is it? I mean, I feel like it's the same. I feel like it's the same thesis we were just floating for the Texans, which is if CJ Stroud is quite good or Bryce Young is quite good, then the whole ceiling, right? Now, obviously, if it's Andy Dalton, it's or a shitty rookie, then you're looking at Deontay Johnson of 2022.
Well, if he's going where those guys are going, I'll draft him for sure. But if he's, I think he had more upside landing with a better quarterback.
Yeah, sure. I think that's fine.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess I don't like it from his closing line value, but I do like it from I don't think the market's gonna shoot up DJ Chark for signing in Carolina. They didn't really react a ton to Thielen signing a little bit, but not crazily.
I could even see him falling, right? Because there could have been the assumption that Chark went to one of these good teams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Stroud, Chark, Hayden Hurst stack that you can get at picks 13th round, 16th round, 15th round, whatever it might be. I kind of like that upside in one of the playoff weeks in best ball. If you just need a cheap stack to go off when, your Ravens stack has a down week and you need them to advance or something like that. I think it's pretty interesting cost adjusted, even though it's not the most interesting players.
Well, okay, let me just share this because I was looking up the John Mechie stuff. This is from Nick Casario in January. I'd say there's a chance that he'll be ready for the start of the offseason program. I think there are still some things that he has to complete or go through. Quite frankly, it's amazing what he's done to this point. He actually looks better now than he did when we drafted him in the spring. He's improved his strength. He's improved his lower body strength. His attitude has been great, even though he's been dealing with a lot of things medically. So,
yeah. So that sounds like he's gonna play.
Sounds like he's gonna play.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. The other thing I wanted. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
Well, so this Chark stuff. So are you out on Marshall? Because now there's like, what is it? Thielen?
Yeah, because I'm out on Marshall because he stinks, and DJ Shark's probably way better than him.
Well, him stinking is a problem. I'll grant you that.
What is the sample of Terrace Marshall's career where he was good? It was like 1 year when he was playing him.
Last year he was like,
and on DraftKings and
what wasn't it just all volume based though? I guess maybe you could argue that even getting the volume was something.
So I'm shooting from the hip a little bit with these numbers, but I think like his yards per route round last year was 1.3 ish, and DJ Moore's was like
1.5.
His was 1.5, and DJ Moore's was not that much higher than that. So like if you're gonna paint the absolute bull case, it's like he was somewhat comparable to DJ Moore last year from an efficiency standpoint. Like I wouldn't go there. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but you could squint and see that picture, I think.
Well, I think his path to playing time goes through Adam Thielen, who had 1.08 yards per route run playing with Kirk Cousins when
you're living on you're living on Fantasy Island. If you think that is Adam Thielen the biggest marquee free agent to sign with the Carolina Panthers, like can you even...
marquee? He's
done.
People know Adam Thielen's name. Adam Thielen is a well-known NFL name.
Yeah, but he's 35, dude.
They gave 39-year-old Adam Thielen like $25 million. Like probably the Chiefs in the
37 years old.
43-year-old Adam Thielen. Other teams were probably like, we'll give you the veteran minimum for 1 year. And the Panthers were like, we cannot send our rookie quarterback to war with Shi Smith and Laviska Shenault. You could name your price, dude. Name your price to come here and we will pay it.
In reality, he's turning 33 in August, which is still very old.
I was hoping we could avoid actually saying his real age.
I thought it was just part of the add 2 years bit. I didn't even.
No, he legit is 33 this year.
He is actually old as hell.
$14 million guaranteed for Adam Thielen. Like that's the worst contract of the offseason, right?
I don't think you can be drafting Adam Thielen with Shark signing there. Like the thesis that you had for Thielen now just goes to Shark. Like he's the guy that will, have a chance to emerge as like a true alpha there, I think.
Yeah. And I think Terrace, I'm less interested. Like 20th round, Terrace Marshall, sure, but like his path now to being on the field in 2 wide receiver sets isn't that clear, and also like his talent is not that clear. So that just seems like, what are we doing? I guess I like Chark. And I think Hayden Hurst is like pretty locked in for a good tight end role there. And it's gross. Like he's not that good, but it's a gross position. He's going to be running routes. He's going to be out there.
I'd be careful with Hayden Hurst. Remember with the Colts, these guys rotated their tight ends nonstop. So, and Hurst is not good.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. They could draft. But if they don't draft one of these top guys, I don't know. Who else is there? Ian Thomas. Like, I guess my point is like, as of right now, it looks good, but you're right. They could easily add someone in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, but they were playing like Jack Doyle and who's the Kylan Granson. Like,
oh, God.
They were just like, they'll find guys to rotate. We don't feel great about the quarterback play.
They'll literally
don't feel good about the player.
Tight ends to rotate.
Yeah. I think Hurst is a trap.
All right.
I agree. It's a trap.
Counterpoint, 13 million guaranteed at signing for Hayden Hurst. That's my only counterpoint, but I don't want to.
Yeah, but again, I mean, Kerrane is the king of making this point. Tight ends can get paid for a lot of reasons. Tight end, like it's a hard position to play. It does not always translate into what we want for fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I agree with the rotation point. the Bengals kind of like had a rotation at tight end for a lot of years, and then Hurst plays there last year, and he's the guy. I think some NFL teams view him as like the tight end you can give 80% snap rate to. We'll see if it works out in Carolina.
Uzomah played a lot of snaps for them. He just wasn't good.
Yeah,
like they had a role that he stepped into. He was just better.
Is Ian Thomas still on the team?
I don't know. He might not be because I think last year was his 4th year.
I mean, that's definitely.
Oh no, I think he's a little older, so he re-signed it. Yeah, he's locked in. Actually, he's not locked in. They could cut him, but he's
Tommy Tremble, and Ian Thomas here to shit all over Sam's Hayden.
Oh, Tommy Tremble is exactly the type of guy they will rotate in.
You might as well call him Kylan Woods. You know, he's literally Jelani Granson. Like that dude, he's there to play.
Jelani Granson. That's so good.
He's there to play 27% of the snaps, run just enough routes that you have to like think about him for minimum salary every week in DFS, and he gets 6 catches all year.
Yeah.
The Colts stuff was so triggering last year on stat chasing, where we were tracking the tight end snaps and routes, and it was like, oh wow, like Mo Alley Cox had a huge role this week. Like maybe you should consider adding him next week. Like he plays.
It'd be completely
10%
because it's completely random.
Yeah, they do a lot of bullshit. So.
But that's like pretty consistent. It's obviously, if they had like Gronk, they'd stop doing that. But like coaches have kind of systems that way. And I would just my assumption would be that they will continue doing that stuff. And Hayden Hurst is not like the level of talent where they would change.
Yeah, like Phil Jackson signed the shittiest, dumbest point guards he could for like 30 years because he just was trying to replicate having Michael Jordan. Like that, yeah. It's the same vibe.
Fair enough. I mean,
Hayden Hurst is Derek Fisher.
He's at pick 200 right now. He's at pick 200 right now. So, like, if you're finding tight ends in that range that are guaranteed for huge roles, let me know. I haven't found anyone past there that really projects for that.
Contingent value if Tommy Tremble gets injured, though. I mean, Chris Manhertz is gone, right? Chris Manhertz signed somewhere else.
Tommy Tremble. Oh God, we're sick.
What do we got? I again wanted to bring this up on Tampa Bay because again I need to continue to push the Baker Mayfield thing, but I've not heard a single person in the fantasy world talk about this. What happens to Buccaneers pass catchers if one of Godwin or Evans gets traded?
I had that thought in a draft, and it led me to select Mike Evans because I was like, he gets traded or Godwin gets traded, and like Baker, maybe he just dials into Mike Evans and runs around and chucks it deep. Like I could see it.
Yeah. I mean Baker. Evans is probably the better fit for Baker because he's like, he's not like a technician type. Like you got to hit him over the middle. Like that was the deal when Odell's dad made the video, was like Odell still running all these good routes and Baker just not throwing to him.
Right. Yeah. That's why I like Evans more, because if he's with Baker, he can probably survive it. Where Godwin, I'm like terrified of a Baker offense and Godwin. And then obviously if either guy gets traded, you're pretty excited. So I don't necessarily know. It would depend on landing spot, obviously, at that point. So I don't know that like Evans or Godwin has like a better chance of getting traded. Or would you say maybe Evans contract wise probably has a slightly better chance?
I was going to say, because Evans has just 1 year left on his contract, right? Whereas I think Godwin signed an extension. So it's easier for Evans to renegotiate. And clearly there's lots of thirst out there for 30-year-old wide receivers because we keep getting hit over the head with these DeAndre Hopkins trade request stories. So there's clearly a thirst out there.
Would you trade for, like, I think I would rather trade for a year of Mike Evans because you're probably not even having to give up that much than Hopkins.
No, because Hopkins is so good.
Mike Evans is very good. He's never not had a 1,000-yard season.
I'm a little worried that Evans has regressed in the skill department, whereas Hopkins didn't really show any skill regression last year. Although he did
2 years ago.
He did 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Evans offers you some more downfield. Like Evans, what he offers you deep downfield is probably been covered up a little bit by Tom Brady. I mean,
by Tom's arm.
14.1 ADOT last year. Like he's still the same Mike Evans, but it's just that Tom Brady wasn't really throwing it deep all that much.
I could buy that.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Evans has 1 year left, but it's $21 million in dead money if he's cut. So doesn't that also mean that like even if he's traded, that money is on their books unless another team agrees to like pay that?
I'm so done trying to understand the NFL rules for all this shit, to be honest with you. It's like it feels like it's so arbitrary.
Yeah, the trade rules, I'm lost on the trade rules. I understand what happens if you cut the guy and there's dead money, but once you trade guys, it seems to all go out the window.
If there's not a column on over the cap for what happens if he gets traded, then I don't understand.
But shouldn't there be? Jason, help us out, man. We don't get this.
We need some help. Unless I think we can move past the team stuff for now. We've hit on a lot of teams. I want to show the positional stuff quickly to round out the charts this week. We do have the running back 3 to 4s moving up kind of noticeably this week. I think that's a lot of the free agents that we just talked through. I think they were artificially cheap because people didn't know where these guys were going to get signed. But we did see sort of like that second grouping of running backs move up this past week. And the wide receivers continue to move up every single week. Still trying to figure out who did this, but
at this point, all the values I have are running backs. It's terrible.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Don't you think there will be a bit of a reversal for this though?
Not before the big board ends.
No. I agree. I agree with that.
But yes, I do think that in July and August, it will not be like this.
Yeah. And if you look at, like, I think Hayden made the point better than I can make it, but like the running backs, I kind of see why they're falling because it's a ton of older guys. It's a lot of guys like in situations that don't feel good or like unpredictable situations, but running backs are still going to score points in fantasy this year. I don't think the NFL has like legislated them out of the game as far as I know. So yeah, I don't know. There's going to be good values at
Hayden basically called us stupid. He was like basically basically you guys are drafting these dipshit wide receivers who have no upside, no contingent value. You're just drafting them to draft them, and you're fundamentally misunderstanding that. Yeah, running backs are going to project for less points, and they're a little bit less. They're actually just as volatile because their projection changes so much with injury. You know, whoever the fifth running back on the Denver Broncos is could be who you need in the fantasy football playoffs if enough dudes just get leveled off by injuries. You know,
yeah, which that guy's not going to be drafted in best ball, but.
Well, okay. Michael Carter on the Jets. What's he right now? Like 200 ADP overall, something like that.
No, yeah, even lower, 240 probably. I don't
think. Yeah, like Michael Carter. I don't even have to squint that hard for like, oh, Brees hamstring right when he comes back, he's not ready. Whoever they draft sucks, or they sign Z. Like, I don't even have to work that hard to see Michael Carter as the guy you need in week 17.
Yeah, but I think there's definitely some ways to play it where you're drafting running backs like earlier than I tend to. And I'm drafting more running backs early in this environment than I otherwise would because I'm getting values, but I don't love the values.
Hayden's saying take them late.
Oh, he's saying take them at the end of drafts.
He was saying, remember what he was saying was like, the ship chasers do these 9 wide receiver builds, and then they never get a contributed point, and they leave all these contingent value running backs. How many leagues was Samaj Pirine taken in Best Ball Mania 3 last year? Like something like he was drafting like 25% or something. Like that. Right. That type of guy should be 100% drafted type guy.
That's fair. I actually do think that this draft environment makes your running back like harder to pull off because you're passing on like some awesome running back values, I think, in like round 2 and 3 that are guys who are typically, especially round 3. I think round 3 is loaded with guys who I'm used to having to take in the second round. That profile feels like a second round running back profile by the market that I'm getting in round 3. And so I'm having trouble passing on those guys. And then like to Hayden's idea is like maybe you only grab one guy or you grab 0 guys and then you stop taking wide receiver, after like 6 or 7 instead of going to like 8 or 9. Liam Murphy's also talked about this idea, which I think is interesting. But I'm actually more going like 2 running backs in the first 6 rounds because I think it's like way more viable than it usually feels like it is.
Yeah, I think those are both viable, but I do think like the wide receiver volatility thing is something that a couple years ago was like a little overplayed, and I think in half PPR, it's actually not true that wide receivers are the more volatile position than running back. I think that was the idea. You need a bunch of wide receivers. They're going to ping pong weeks. You need a bunch of them. I think PPR, definitely true. Half PPR, Hayden's done some work the past couple of years that volatility case is not really there for wide receivers versus running back. So I do really like the idea that Hayden has of like the same way we think about, you get 2 anchored running backs, you probably just need 4 or 5. Like if you start, Cooper Kupp, Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel or whatever, like hold off on the wide receivers. Like those guys.
Well, I wouldn't hold off at that point. I would take, 3 more and then maybe you're done.
Sure. That's what I mean. Like hold off on the total quantity. Like I've seen a lot of people, they start like super wide receiver heavy and they still have like 9 wide receivers. Like I would not 100%.
It's diminishing returns, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. And I think one way to think about this.
He also made another good point about the scoring, like 36, like Justin Jefferson's 11 points in a bad week are still probably making your lineup because of the way the scoring works. There more wide receiver points are required. Whereas like if you have 3 high scoring running backs, like maybe the 9 points that Zeke gets isn't making it in. So you're actually gaining points by losing the roster spot. If that makes I don't think I explained it the way Hayden did.
I see what you're saying.
He's much smarter than me, but like the added value of higher running back points is more because of the way the roster spots shake out. I think is the way Hayden explained it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a dumbass and I misunderstood him.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm confused.
Well, so I think what the argument is, and maybe we just have Hayden back on the show to explain this to us. But
we need Jason Fitzgerald and Hayden on the show. Tell us how this works.
Essentially, you're going to start 3 wide receivers, probably more in the flex. So that means the replacement level wide receiver is anything from the wide receiver 36 to the wide receiver 48. So that's a lot of wide. That's a lot of wide receivers.
Yes,
right.
This is the point.
Justin Jefferson's 8 or 9 point. I think Hayden's threshold for the replacement level wide receiver is only like 8 points because that's just a shit ton of wide receivers. So you may be like, oh, Justin Jefferson's 9 points. Like I wish I had someone else. Like that's not going to matter for me. That actually like counts in your lineup. Every
he needs to do less to slot into your lineup.
Yes, and that actually makes them less volatile. But it
makes that elite receiver even more valuable because he's hitting your lineup even in his bad weeks, and then he's crushing it for you in his great weeks. And then you need to find less points at the running back position because you only have 2 spots to fill.
Yeah. And you should check out Hayden's article. I don't think he touched on this in the show last week, but he also showed that like he counted the number of points above replacement. Like how many times does say the wide receiver replacement level is 8 points per week. How many times did a wide receiver last year get 20 points above that replacement level? And he actually showed that relative to running backs, wide receivers are actually providing like less spikes above that replacement level than running backs are. I think that was just a 1-year thing and like certainly worth, I think it'd be super interesting research to like go back 10 years of data and see how this works. But we actually have Hayden in the chat now.
All right.
So yeah, hopefully we didn't completely butcher your point. But I
think we got there.
Article.
I think
we got there, but we just, I just like 80 IQ'd my way there, and then Sam saved me.
So tune into ADP chasing. We'll be just really brutally butchering Hayden Works analysis. in a
We'll
way
just be
that,
recapping his free Underdog articles for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, if there's any other research based articles you'd like us to butcher and then finally figure out 10 minutes later.
Yeah, please let us know.
Yeah. All right. This feels like a good time to land the plane here. Let's talk our favorite values. Pat, you want to start us off? You got a favorite value? And we're also, before Pat goes, we're gonna put a little bit of stakes on this. I think we agreed via Discord. We're gonna be splitting a higher stakes underdog team at some point, like one of the Bulldogs or whatever.
They'll do like a $500 one or whatever.
Yeah, and we're gonna track all these takes, and whoever does the best in terms of getting closing line value on these takes will be free rolled in that tournament. The other two of us will sort of split it. So
you guys are already drawing dead though, because I got two of the best values in.
Oh, dude,
this is all based on closing line value, not what happens.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah,
we can't, buddy. We don't care. We can't control for the results once the pigskin starts flying around the yard. We can only predict what our fellow nerds are gonna do.
Yeah, we're
I
doing
recommend trying to
value.
control for the results.
Well,
by the way, I have
Patrick.
Rashaad Penny right now at a 100 pick increase. So I just want to say that.
Oh God! All right,
Pat, what do we got? Favorite value?
well, I picked one that's not going to have much closing line value, but I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it because you know what? Let me. Actually,
We're also doing. We're doing
go to someone else.
percent increase of closing line value. So if you want to pick a guy higher up, you can still get upside there. Like if Pollard rises 5 spots, that could be equivalent to Penny rising 40 spots. You know what I mean? Davis, you got one? I can start.
Yes. Yeah, I got one. I will go with Damien Harris at running back 42, pick 140 overall. He is going to be a top 100 pick by the time it's all over. I propose, by the way, if we get a Tim Patrick situation, that it's got to be thrown out, right? Someone tears their knee. Injury,
No.
you get a pass for your guy getting injured.
Oh, your guy gets injured? I don't know, man. This is football.
We're trying to do a spreadsheet exercise here.
Let's make I don't want to get into exceptions because then, like, what if, I don't know, the starting running back on a team tears their ACL and then your guy launches 100 spots because of that?
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Let the random.org.
The chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
I like the Harris one though. I would co-sign that, but I can't take it for this exercise. Pat, you got one?
I'm just gonna stick with my. You know what? Because I'm here to help the people. I'm not trying to decide who has to pay for a big board draft. This isn't gonna get you any closing line value, most likely. But I just think it's a very good pick. Fits with the discussion we had about trying to get some late running back upside on your roster. It's Jaylen Warren. He is highly protected by Najee Harris's.
It's a really good pick.
That's a good pick.
Nothing's going to happen to this backfield that's going to shake it up, most likely. I mean, who knows, but he is one of the more protected direct handcuffs, and he is a direct handcuff. And guess what? He's better than the starter. Najee Harris, we talked about some gross running backs today. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've talked about anyone
doesn't get grosser.
Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott, higher in rush yards over expected per attempt than Najee Harris last year.
That's really incredible.
It's unreal. David Montgomery, also better. Dalvin Cook, we talked about getting cut. Better. It's like there's really not much threat here from Harris as a talent. It's just the fact that, it's like a sunk cost status quo type of thing that he's got to overcome. But we saw with CEH last year in his third season, that's when kind of the dam broke on the coaches being tied to him. They're like, you know what? We're sick of this. We're just letting another guy get his shot. And they already have that guy there in Jaylen Warren. He played pretty well last year. They seem pretty impressed with him. I sometimes tack on Jaylen Warren to Pittsburgh stacks because I feel like if Kenny Pickett's, going to take a step, he needs the best guys out on the field. It's like, what are the scenarios in which this Pittsburgh offense is really crushing? To me, it's if Warren's out there. So, I like him a lot. He's going to probably stick around this price, but he will help you actually score points.
I like the Warren pick a lot. It's like just the free handcuff that for whatever reason nobody seems to want right now, and potential upside for more. We even saw.
I think
last
he will
year.
probably. I think he will probably increase in price, though.
Well, he will now.
Of course,
I'm trying the heel turn. Is it working?
it's good. That was good. That was a good
Working.
start.
Yeah. All right. Mine. You guys both went with running backs. I'll go with the wide receiver. A little bit more challenging to get closing line value. So I'm gonna, since I'm already so far ahead in this exercise, I'll take a risk here. I'm gonna go with Darius Slayton, wide receiver of the New York Giants. He's at pick 202 right now. He's cheaper than guys like Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell. The Giants are building an entire offense out of slot receivers, and Darius Slayton is
He's the only one who
basically
can
the
play
only
outside.
body in their wide receiver room that's going to play outside. I think he's pretty locked into 2 wide receiver sets. Whereas, good luck guessing Wan'Dale, Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard. Good luck guessing who's going to play in the slot amongst those guys. It's a disaster. Slayton's the guy you want.
It's Wan'Dale till he breaks, right? It'll be Wan'Dale until he gets hurt in like week 4.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I thought. But then like Crowder on top of everything else, Crowder.
When's the last time Jamison Crowder played in an NFL game for real? Like years.
Wasn't it 2 years ago? No, it wasn't 2 years ago.
No, last year he played a little bit. First couple weeks he played.
Did he?
I barely even remember. Like he was on the Bills.
Yeah, he played
on the Bills.
4 games last year.
Yeah. Anyways, it's a fucking mess of slot wide receivers. I guess if you want to compare Hodgins versus Slayton, maybe Hodgins looks a little bit better in some of the numbers last year, but they gave him a grand total of $0 million guaranteed. They gave Slayton $5 million. I'm worried Hodgins gets cut at a price of $150. I don't know why you take the risk with Hodgins. Slayton's going to be on the team, and he's a full 52 picks later. So I kind of like the Giants stack too. In terms of price, Daniel Jones, pick 100, tack on, Slayton, maybe guess at one of the slot guys at the end of your draft. And it's a pretty cheap stack that I think has some upside in the day ball offense. So Darius Slayton's my guy.
I like it.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that one.
Awesome. Well, that was another great show, guys. Pat, I know you got a lot of stuff going on for Legendary Upside. You got a new article out today on Bijan. Anything else you want to talk about there?
I do, yeah. So on Bijan, the Bijan section is completely free. Go sign up. I also have sections on Jahmyr Gibbs and Zach Charbonnet behind the paywall. There's a 30-day trial, so you can check that out if you want. LegendaryUpside.com. Also, $30 off subscriptions right now via the early bird discount. Only $69 for the year. You can go that route if you prefer as well.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And I'll just quickly give my perspective on Legendary Upside. I love the podcast form of your articles. I'm someone who I don't know if it's just my attention span's completely collapsed the last couple of years, but I really struggle to read things, even people that put out really good work, whose work I really want to read. So the podcast feed for me, just getting all of that info in audio form is super awesome and really digestible. So I'd put a strong stamp of approval on that stuff. It's awesome work.
Thanks. Yeah, I am also broken. I can only absorb things through audio. So I was just hoping there was other people like me out there.
You guys gotta train your brain, bro. If you're not reading, your brain is literally atrophying. It's like not working out in your 30s. You're literally ruining your brain.
Yeah, but what if you're atrophied to the point where now you can't even do the thing?
I have so much more of a broken brain than any of you guys, and I still read every single day.
I don't think you are. You like read all these like amazing books, and you have the authors on and talk to them. I feel like you're way less broken brain.
No, dude, trust me. It's not pretty up there. What I need another thing to say though. If you are a 2X podcast listener, which I kind of get the feeling that Sam might be. Please tell me you're not.
No, I'm a very strictly 1X guy.
Friedman.
Oh, that's
Friedman.
it.
Friedman fucking listens on like 3X.
That's insane. I mean, you can't even make out all the words on 3X. Like literally, like people talk too fast. Words get chopped.
I can't handle it, man. I can't handle the idea that people are going around just trying to like download this information into their brains. It's like, bro, that's literally what reading is for. So I get very triggered by the 2x, 3x podcast listeners.
I'm a 1.25x guy. I've had a stretch where I was 1.5, but 1.25, it feels like someone's talking regularly. It's just kind of like
pitched up.
It's pitched up and the silences
are
are crunched a little. It's just like someone's talking a little bit more engaged is honestly what it sounds like.
Here's the thing. Me personally, I can't imagine like listening to like a hardcore history episode on 1.25. You know what I mean?
Oh, that'd be 1.25 all day. Like you gotta go 1.25.
Like we get like 4 Dan Carlin episodes a year and you're trying to like race through it, man. I can't.
That's not what it is.
Imagine.
It's just that I enjoy listening to it more because it's like
you've atrophied your brain, dude. You've literally
I live in New York. I'm used to everybody talking fast. Come on, give me the info. Talk already. What are you trying to say, man? Come on.
Fair. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe it's geographic. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm used to everyone in Missouri just talks like they've coached Nick Chubb their entire lives.
The Ohio accent. Oh, that's funny. Davis, anything going on for you? You wanna
usual stuff? Sports Creative Fantasy Football Podcast, Takecast. I'm
We had
yes.
this exact same conversation. Yeah.
Because I feel extremely passionate about this. Like if anyone in my life listens to podcasts too fast, I'm like offended by it.
But Dan in the comments here pointed out we had this exact same conversation last year. That was with me, Davis, and Pete and Ben. This is with me, Davis, and Sam. It's a completely different thing.
It's completely different. Sam and I are just we're feeling each other out. I got to know if he's a 2X podcast listener.
I like that you thought I was a
important.
2X podcast listener. I don't like that. I'm afraid that I'm giving.
Well, you're pretty analytical. You're pretty database, and that's like Friedman's whole take is he's like, I'm not trying to be entertained. I'm trying to engage with it. I'm trying to get this information into my skull, you know?
And I'm trying to do it in a way that makes it not entertaining.
Like that's literally what he's saying. He's like, I'm not trying to have fun. I'm trying to figure out who JJ Zacharyason's top 24 rookie drafts are, and I need to know
just email
in
him,
6
dude.
minutes.
You have his email.
Yeah. I will say for boring, like when I've been in school and I'm, taking my accounting class and I have to watch a video, that's 2-3x speed easily because I don't give a fuck. It's so boring, but I'm doing this for entertainment. So 1.25. I mean, anything.
Hayden is 2x.
Oh god.
Unbelievable. Like I couldn't be less shocked. I could not possibly, if you said, okay, you got to name someone other than Friedman who who goes on 2x. Hayden would have been top 3 people I would have guessed.
What is the demo? Is it spreadsheet? Is that the correlation?
The correlation. The correlation is the more into spreadsheets you are, the more likely you are to be, because you're viewing the exercise not as like art or as like a collaborative discussion between podcaster and audience. It's all about the information.
So what is Leone doing then? Is he like writing a Chat GPT script to like take out the most important points and then listen to that on like
Leone
5x
has a doctor put him under and just inject it into his brain.
Okay, I'm gonna message Leone right now. What do we think? Do you listen to podcasts on 2X?
See, Leone strikes me as I bet he's 1X, man. I
bet Leone is 1X because he is going to feel the same way I do, which is that it will break his brain too much to do it on. Because here's the thing:
he's also a runner, so he might be like kind of going. He just wants to hear something. Like he might not be trying to download. He has time in which he can absorb.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and he's big into like the Huberman like life optimization, brain health type stuff, like I am, and. If you told Andrew Huberman you listen to his podcast on 2X, he'd be like, get the fuck out, dude. Like, what are you trying to do to yourself?
He watches the film. Well, that explains why you like Trey Sermon.
He actually looks the same in point.
You thought it was on 0.5x like the rest of the film, and it was just his regular filming. It fooled you.
Same for Deuce McBride. Also in slow motion.
McBride. Dwayne McBride.
Dwayne. I mean,
Same
Deuce
guy.
is a good nickname, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
All right. Let's land the plan here. This is some good podcast speed talk. We'll be with you next week. I think the same three of us again next Friday. You can listen to us in 1.25, 1.5.
Listen however you want.
Yeah, however you want. We won't judge.
I will
listen to us. Yeah, Davis will judge you, but you're welcome here at ADP Chasing. It's been good stuff, guys. We will see you all next week.